guys. Oh, there we go. Let me just show you the outside. If you guys can see, this is Utah today. Beautiful and sunny, and the mountains. It was so bad. It snowed last night, and it was so bad that there was a tanker accident off the freeway that's been going on since 11 p.m. last night. So there is I think it's almost 8-mile backed up traffic in our area, which is really interesting. So, but glad to have everybody. So I'm going to talk about project management in HubSpot. I'm actually going to talk about project management in general, just to give you guys a little bit of background. Years ago, I did Salesforce for over 10 years. And I switched over to HubSpot about 5 years ago. I worked for several different companies. I worked for an agency actually that just did consulting for HubSpot. And now I just do that did Salesforce. Now I just do HubSpot. But in my previous life, in other projects and things I did, I realized that companies that I worked with really had a lot of project management. So I went and became, through PMI, CAP-M certified, which really just means that I took a little test and can say that I know a little bit about project management. So I've got a little bit of background. I don't want to claim that I'm a project manager by any means, but I am a solution architect with CRM. And so I'm going to talk to you guys today about some specifics around CRM and how we build things. And we're going to try to answer people's questions at the end. And I'm going to cover a lot of stuff. I'm going to cover a lot of things that some of you will say, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to build it. Maybe it's a little too technical. I'm going to kind of hit a high surface here so we can go through a lot of stuff. So hopefully you can follow along. We can answer some questions in the end, but I'm excited about it. So I'm going to pay attention to my screen over here while I'm talking to you, but kind of the agenda that I want to go through today is we're going to go through I'm going to talk about different types of projects. Then I'm going to talk about some of the tools that maybe some of you are using today or could possibly use. So some of you are probably like, we're keeping it in an Excel document. I really hope that you're not. I hope that you're using some sort of tool to help automate what you're doing. I'm going to talk about our solution. So I'm very proud of what we've done here. We're doing more. As some of you may know, and I may mention over and over again, is the shoemaker's kids don't get new shoes. And what that means is that as we are working with our clients, I don't get as much time to work on our own HubSpot instance. There are things that I'm still cleaning out and fixing within our own. And so I try to take time from my team, but we're really focused on our clients. We built some amazing systems. And so sometimes we don't get to what we want. There's definitely some things this next year. I've got a plan in the summer. I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're going to do to enhance our system even further because of the capabilities in HubSpot. And so hopefully you guys take some notes on those and maybe implement them yourself. So, but I'm going to talk about the building blocks of how we build out the system. I'm going to give you guys an actual tour of our system. I try to redact it so that I'm not giving away too much. I don't think you guys will be able to see anything on any specific clients. So, but my live org is one of the best that I've got built, and I want to be able to share some of that with you and how we use it. I'm definitely going to go over reporting. That's the key aspect of the whole thing. And then we're definitely going to talk about future steps of what I'm trying to do that you may be able to implement, and then we'll get into questions. And then I'll share some contact info with you here at the end. So we're going to dive in. Okay. I got to get all that spiel out of the way. So let's talk about types of projects. So let me just talk about what we do here over at Pearagon. Pearagon is not a marketing agency. So I do not, I know many of you are, probably about 80% of you probably on this call, maybe 50%, unless we got a lot of RevOps people. I don't do any marketing strategy. I don't do any content building. I don't manage people's SEO or PPC, and I don't build websites. Now, I say that a little tongue in cheek because when clients do come to us, we outsource to partners like yourself. We have a lot of local partners that I bring in when we have projects like that, but I don't still try to do any type of retainer with a client on a monthly basis. It's under norm for us. It's changing here in 2023. We are going to move and become for maintenance packages. We have a lot of large clients that have ongoing services. So we are going to, for the first time ever, start doing retainers for maintenance within the system, but not for any marketing or paid marketing, which is probably really different than what some of you do. So so some people, a lot of you on this call, you work with retainer, you have a flat fee, you take $10,000, $20,000 a month, you manage the entire program. There's a structured outcome. So every month, these 5 things have to occur. And there's kind of consistent jobs that are done, and then feedback that comes through that loop. So if you're posting for them, if you're building out strategy, you're updating websites, you kind of have some consistent jobs, and you're usually taking a monthly retainer, and supposedly everything gets done in that month under that retainer. My company works under an hourly basis. So we actually sell blocks of hours, whether it's a large project or a small project. We usually do ad hoc or project based, and it's always based around a bucket of hours that we estimate. And then some people have a hybrid. They say, look, we're going to do all of this as a retainer. And then there's this little bucket here of money that we've put in, and we're going to track hours that are associated with it. And I know all of you are probably tracking hours with what you're doing. So the model you're going to see today from me, that's mostly an hourly model, because that's what we do. You're going to see that you can actually put a retainer in it and also track hourly tasks that are associated with it, and you can systematically bring them in together. So we can talk about that. And then, oh, my mouse is a little finicky. And then, yeah, you could have other structures with maybe like open-ended hours as well. So let's talk about some of the tools. So some of you are probably using some of these. A popular one that I hear from people a lot is Monday.com, especially in the marketing world. I hear a lot of people that are using Trello or Asana to manage their projects. I just want you all to know that I used Trello and Asana when we first started, and I hated it. I hated it because I couldn't get the reporting that I needed. I couldn't track people's individual hours the way that I wanted to, and I had to get it into my billing system. So my problem was I had to report on every hour to my clients on what we were doing, and Trello didn't suffice that. I would have Trello go in, we put a project, here's what needed to be done, and then somebody would have to go individually go and log each hour into another system. And so they were disparate, and it really drove me nuts because I wanted to see what was going on with my clients and where we were at and what we had done, and actually in comparison to the actual task that was being performed at the time. And so for years, we were just using Excel spreadsheets to be able to put items in because it was easier to track. And I went through a couple different accounting systems to try to do it and track hours, and it just got worse and worse and worse until last year when HubSpot said, hey, we're going to use, we've come out with custom objects. And I went, hooray. My Salesforce background in me came out, and I was like, this is awesome. Let's use custom objects, and let's see if we can just track our own work in the system that I can export and re-import into QuickBooks. And that's what we use. And so that worked out for us. But some of these others out here, like Monday.com, some of these have better integrations. I think PSO Hub has some amazing integrations, and I saw them over at the Inbound this last year. And so I think they've got a good thing. I had my guys look at this intensely, and they said, basically, we're kind of doing the same thing in our system in HubSpot, but this is really cool. I said, great. So I feel really little pompous a little bit about what we've done. So let's talk about our solution, or basically a HubSpot solution. So let me just take a step back real quick. In HubSpot, I've built out a project management tool that we use. And we are just using standard functionality in HubSpot, using a few different things. I'm going to go over that. So first off, you have to figure out what type of project it is that you're running. So as we talked, like a hybrid, or if you're an hourly or retainer based, that's really important to know. You need to know which metrics you want to track. Some metrics that we track, and I'll show you, utilization is key for me. So I need to know that employee A is getting me at least 75% utilization, meaning that 3 out of 4 of the hours that he works are billable to the client. And if they're not billable, then I'm losing traction. Our margin starts to go down. I track metrics on the clients themselves of how far along we are with milestones and percentage of the project being complete, and also measuring what's called burn rate. For those of you who don't know what burn rate is how fast you're actually burning the hours that are available to you. So we work at an hourly basis. Let's say I had a bucket of 100 hours. I want to know what my rate is on how fast I'm burning that. I don't want to burn it too quickly because we may be moving too fast. I went and worked out this morning. If I go nice at a slow pace, then the muscle can actually build. And that's kind of what burn rate is about. It's about having good consistency. So measuring maybe a 5-week program of 20 hours a week burn is really good, because maybe we do something for the client, we have a meeting with them, we reevaluate it, we do an iteration. The next week we perform another 20 hours, come back, communicate with the client. So really important to understand what your metrics are and what you want to measure. We look at total projects. You'll see a few things about how many hours do we have available, how many hours do we are in the queue or in progress, and just constantly trying to keep track of where things are at. It really helps our operations manager to evaluate when we need another body that we're going to hire. We've been planning this out. We've been looking at our burn rate and our current hours and saying, okay, we're going to bring in a body by January 1, and then we're going to need another person by February 1, based on the workload of projects that are coming in. Who's participating? So if we look at things like who's actually working within the system. So do they need to have access within HubSpot for what they're doing? And do they need to have access to maybe key metrics or tasks that they're performing at the time that they're doing it? So who's going to be in there? Is it the project manager? Do they need to have access? Who are the users? And what are the user types? So you'll see in ours, we have things like somebody that's assigned for QA and who's actually working the project at the given time. So if you want to kind of take some of those things, if you're taking notes, that's definitely something I'd mark down, is who's participating in the project. What about permissions and capabilities? So, locking the right information and making sure data is clean, having good audit trails is important. So make sure that you've set up the right permissions. And then on your communications piece, we want to look at your different notifications, internal and external. Now, I'm going to be really frank. We're really good at our internal. Our external communication is lacking. It's something, again, that shoemakers, kids don't get new shoes. We actually, for the first time ever, this last week, hired our first marketing person in our office. I haven't had anybody doing marketing for us since we started. We've done marketing practices, but actually having a dedicated person has been new for us. So we're actually going to start working on external communications about projects and where projects are at, but we do hold weekly meetings and we keep track of those meetings. So the biggest thing is when people need to be notified of jobs. So internally, when people need to be notified of jobs, and can you communicate that to your client for specific tasks that need to be done, maybe tasks that the client needs to do. This is the key thing. The next item here is about HubSpot license. So let me tell you about the license that we have. So you need to make sure your license structure is correct. You need at a minimum an enterprise license for custom objects for what you're going to see today. So don't anybody jump off if you don't have an enterprise license. Please listen to what's going on and why we use it. But at a minimum, you need that because you need the custom objects that are associated. You can hack deals and tickets if you don't have custom objects, but eventually it will break because it can't handle the load of what you need, of the data that you need to put in it. And it's not structured that way. And it won't grow to your needs, but it is something you can start with today and then figure out if it's cost effective for you to move to an enterprise license. And I mean, the cheapest one is to go with like a CMS or a service enterprise so that you can get custom objects and then build this structure out. If you can, Operations Hub, I cannot sing louder for it. It's the best to have in combination with that enterprise license. I always suggest getting with our clients a pro bundle so they can have operations with one hub at enterprise. For us, when we're building, we have found that if a client can have pro bundle with at least one enterprise license, we can do quite a bit of damage. We specifically like to have enterprise around sales or service, because then that allows for things like playbooks and additional meeting types and stuff. So that's usually what we suggest. And the reason why is because then the pro comes with some CMS capabilities when we want to build like sites or pages for people. We have the automation for marketing, and then we have the Operations Hub, which helps with data management, but also with some of the coding things that we do in the system to make this tool work. So don't jump ship yet, even though you may not have those. You can definitely use deals and tickets to get where you need to, but understand the structure and construct of what we're doing within it. So the biggest thing about getting the Pro Bundle and the Operations Hub that I want to let you all know is it will save you time, and it will take the work of multiple people out of your hands. I am sure that I would probably need another 2 to 3 people for the work that we do, just using the automation that we have in the system right now. So getting it is really good. Do an ROI analysis, figure out how much time you're spending, and say, you know what, I could probably make more money or do more exemplary work if I had something else doing it. So spending the time and working on it, if you're new, this is really good. And you'll be able to easily justify your monthly cost, and you'll earn it back tenfold. I just want you all to know, we drink the Kool-Aid. We are all in on HubSpot. I don't use a lot of other tools other than like QuickBooks, Zoom, and Gmail, which are just normal tools outside of a system, all connected with HubSpot anyways. So the next thing you need is, one of the building blocks is about building an object and a process map, so you can structure the right way for your organization. So if we go back and talk about the different types of projects, retainer, hourly, you need to build out your structure that meets for that. So we're going to take a little field trip. I like field trips. PowerPoint gets really, really boring. So let's get into the meat of some things here. So I'm going to go ahead and exit my PowerPoint, but we're going to look at my live org. We're going to talk about reports, and I'm going to talk about some automations with this. So we are going to copy this, and we're going to go here. And Kelly, can you tell me real quick, can you see this? So I need to zoom in a little bit. I'll make it just a little bigger.
This looks good. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Yep. Looks great.
Okay. So when we get into custom objects, the first thing you should learn and this is good for anything. If any of you are really trying to become good, and I'm sure some of you are really good HubSpot architects, and we consider ourselves solution architects, is actually building out good mapping of objects within HubSpot and what they are. So we have normal mappings, which is like contact, company, deal, and their associations of one to many. That's where you see these little, where it splices out into 3. That's a one to many, or in this case, it's a many to many relationship. I can have many contacts to many companies now because of associations. And same with deals. Deals can be connected with multiple contacts, and contacts can have multiple deals. Normal construct of objects. We usually build this out for our clients when we do this. This is what we show them. So if you're thinking of a client in mind for this, definitely something that you want to do with them is go through this process of, here's how we're mapping the objects and how they're going to connect and how data is going to connect between them. From here, you can build out things of like, you can go to another process of how you're going to map maybe specific data points between each object. So we've built out our project tool with 4 different objects that you'll see here: project, project milestone, project task, and project hour. You'll notice that it is a 1-to-many ratio on all of these, meaning that even though HubSpot's custom objects are built as a many-to-many, we utilize them as a 1-to-many, meaning that I do not assign multiple milestones to multiple projects. I always assign a milestone to a project and not to multiple projects. It just keeps things succinct. We don't want to break them up. You'll also notice that I only have contact, company, and deal associated to the project. I do not associate it with other objects, even though I could. And maybe for your visibility, you need to see who the contact is on a task. But I think that everything should roll up for ease of use. Plus, it keeps the clutter down on your right-hand side to do other things. With the project, we look at things like high-level key items, start and stop dates, and then a myriad of summaries that you're going to see. I summarize a lot of different information here, and we calculate a lot of information. And that's why enterprise is good too, because you get a lot of calculated fields. On the project milestone, let me just take a step back on this. We actually, when we started, we used to just have project, project task, and project hour. We actually just used to have project and project task before that. And so we've expanded into 2 other objects for ease of use. And I'm going to tell you why. As we go along here, is that we needed further breakdown of information to roll up because it was getting too convoluted, and we couldn't really separate what was happening within a project at the right time. And we wanted to track it in a way that would be easier for the team to know what their tasks were and what they were trying to perform on. So The milestone is like a key focus area. So these are the key items. We break those key items into focus areas. So this could be something like, building out marketing or building out sales hub within the system. If we were working in sales hub only with a client, it might be something like building quotes, building automations, building, pipelines and deal stages, maybe key milestone areas. Training would be a key milestone area. The kickoff, project management is a key milestone for us typically. Project tasks then are the breakdowns of the multiple tasks, and this is where the grunt of the work gets done. This is where we build out specific tasks, stories, requirements, QA. We put in time that's associated with it. And then on every task, then each individual person within our organization can log a project hour. So a project hour is logged for the tasks they're working on. So Billy may be assigned to do the task and he performs the task. Maybe it's building a workflow that it does lead assignment. So the task may be build workflow for lead assignment. Here's what needs to happen every single time we put in all the criteria. Billy fulfills on it. And then he records his hours. Sally comes in and she's then, once you'll see that we change statuses. Once it moves to QA, Sally, who is assigned for QA, automatically then QAs the task, logs her hours for QA. And then each one of those line items, I just export project hours every 2 weeks when we do billing, and I input them into QuickBooks using a secondary tool that we're going to be automating here soon. But actually my accountant does it now, so it makes it a lot easier, but it's an easy export. I mark that they've been marked as billable and into QuickBooks, which actually will run up to some numbers on the summary on the project, and it makes it really easy for me. What's really cool is all the hours then roll up to the task, so I can see the task totals. From the task, I can roll up all those hours to the project milestone, see those totals and percentage complete based on the number of estimated hours. So we'll put in things like estimated 20 hours for this milestone. And then as we work hours, we can see if we're above or beyond or below that and what percentage is complete. And then all of those hours and timing and elements move into the project for completion and elements related there. So this is a data model structure that we use. We are sharing this presentation, so you'll be able to go back and see this. If there are other ways that I could, from a retainer perspective, all you need to do is change you could have a milestone that could have a type. You can mark the milestone as like an hourly or a fixed cost. And then you could still log project hours to it, knowing that if it's a fixed cost, it's just how many hours did it take to do that fixed cost. So in your estimate, you could start figuring out your margins of completion. For example, we estimate that it's going to take 20 hours a month to do this type of marketing work for a client. And it's a fixed cost. So I don't bill the client anymore, but I want to know my utilization of hours. I can have all my employees for the amount of hours they work on it, mark it up. And I can say I've got 20 hours in here, and I can see whether or not I'm over or under that. If I'm coming underneath it, if I'm doing it in 18 hours, even though I've estimated 20, then I'm making good margin. And maybe you need to adjust for the client down the road or something, but maybe it's always consistently 22 hours or 23 hours. You might want to change your pricing model to the client because you're actually going above the hours that you want to, depending on how you work your business, right? Maybe it is the fact that you tell them it's for 20 hours, but you're always going to get 25, and that's what what's expected, and your margin matches up in utilization for what you need based on the cost maybe of that employee. That's another thing that you can't put in project hour. We don't do this, but if you want to look at the cost per employee to see what your margin is on the project, you could do that as well. My only caveat with that is you do need higher level permissions to be able to block those fields. The problem too is that you can't block specific objects yet within HubSpot. I'm hoping that comes. Hope somebody at HubSpot's listening, but I'd really like to. Right now, I can't say everybody can see project hour and what they own. It's either all on custom objects or none. I'm being able to do that, which makes it hard, or owned only, and that's really hard too because there's 2 or 3 people that are owners listed in our HubSpot on almost every object. So when that comes, if you're using like field permissions though, and you're locking those out for people not to see, you could look at margins and costs per employee and roll that up for yourself. So something to think about. Please understand these roll-up summaries come in 2 different ways for us. Roll-up summaries come in the way of calculated fields and also Operations Hub. So Operations Hub takes into account and maybe does some other manipulation with calculations for time and structure to roll it back up to the project. A lot of it is for like completion hours and percentages a lot of times. So, okay. Let's go to process flow. I'm going to give you the ugliest process flow map of your life because the complicated ones aren't fun to look at. So you need to build out what your process is and managing a project. So this is a very simplified one, and it could have a whole bunch more stuff in it for communication and who does what. And you could put it into, I would suggest putting it into like lanes. So you have like little lanes, like swimming lanes of who's communicating where and when. So project manager versus QA versus client can be broken down in this, which would be really awesome when you build it. So, you know, deal closes in our system. When a deal closes, it auto creates the project. We even have some where when we have a project, we do addendums. So we actually create the deal off of the project. We mark it as an addendum. When the addendum closes, it just adds additional hours just to that project. It doesn't create a whole new one, which is really cool. So we create the project gets assigned. We have a kickoff meeting. Was the meeting held? No. We email the client, we reschedule. Meeting is held, yes. We gather requirements, we build the milestones, we write the stories, we create the task, we assign the task. It goes through, they build, we do QA. Did it pass QA? If not, rework, the task gets assigned back to the individual. This is a really basic rudimentary process flow, but this is really key for any business to put together, is have a flow and understand where your breakoffs are. Where do you have decisions that are occurring? And then maybe put them in swim lanes of who actually gets assigned. So like I said, you could put a swim lane that talks about, let's just open this up a little bit. We're gonna go a little further on this. But put in like a vertical container here, and all of this, you know, all this here, I can mark as the, you know, project manager. And these are the things that he's in charge of, right? And then this would come over and have another container be associated with somebody else. So take that into account of like who the assignment is, because you can bring in the communication structure. And one of these could be the client, one could be the QA, one could be the project manager, and you can create your communication processes. I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing this, but if you're not, this is a free tool, by the way. It's diagram.net or diagrams.net. We have it through Google. So if you just add it in as under your Drive, we actually access this from Drive. When I go like open and create a new doc, I can actually create a new diagram. It's free and it has all the tools and capabilities. It's a little finicky at times, but it works better than paying for like some of the other systems are like $50 a month per user. And from a cost structure, that's just too much when you're just building out simple processes. So it's good to use with your clients. It's good to use internally. Okay. So let's actually go look at a project. So we're going to jump into HubSpot here. So I am in HubSpot and I'm in my project object right now. So as we know, one of the things that I like about HubSpot is everything is the same. So we get the same information on the right-hand side. As we mentioned, I have my contact, I have my company, and I have my deal. As we jump into these other objects, you will see that we do not have contacts, companies, or deals associated. But this one does have a milestone associated with it. And you'll see the milestone, I have my start date, my due date, and my % complete is what I show on the card. And you can adjust this for what you need. For the project itself, we have a due date that we show up in here and what the next steps are with the client. So I have just current project status, things that we need from the client. What next step is, due date, more information about this project. I look at things like the type of project we have. Is it ad hoc, assessment, onboarding? I look at who owns the project. What's the start date of this project? What's the due date of this project? Who's the actual sponsor from the client? So even though I may have a bunch of contacts over here and I can use associations, which is cool. We've been doing this for a while now, so it's still here is who's the actual client sponsor. So if everything goes awry, who am I going to be contacting? We capture their hub ID. We create a Google folder for them. That's how we keep track of documents. Is the status, are they active, complete, pause, scoping still? Maybe we've gone back to a scoping process. What percentage of hours have been used? So 3% of the total hours have been used. I capture their QuickBooks ID. This is something I use when I export. And then we have an internal company ID. And let me talk about this for a second. We keep track of, when we started doing this, we learned as we kind of went along and building this out a little bit. We needed a way to be able to track the company. So we used to have just like a number association. So it used to be like 01 company, like first 4 letters of the company's name, and then that was it. And then we got into projects, and some of our clients started having multiple projects. So then we extended our internal ID to the number for the client name, shortened. And then we came up with, as you see here, the 001 to mark which project it is. So if it's 001, that's one project. If it's 002, it's a different project. I just needed a way to be able to differentiate the 2 different projects, not the specific name of the project. So that way, when I'm putting it into QuickBooks, I can bill according to specific retainers for each project. This is something that we created using Operations Hub. It's just a calculation in Operations Hub that views the last block and what number project this is. So that's something my coders did. I'm not the man to answer how we built that, but it was built with Operations Hub. It works really great. And I'll show you where it actually shows itself throughout the system. Let's look at some of the heavier stuff here then. Hours and billing. So we track a lot here. We have like our scoped hours that come over, and with the addendums, we look at the retainer hours. How many hours did the client give us as a retainer? How many hours have we actually completed? And then how many hours were actually billable? So sometimes we have non-billable hours. We come and we have to fix something or change something, but I still want to track that. And I want it tracked per employee for what they're doing, so I can make sure that I know how we're utilizing them. So if one of my employees is getting a lot of non-billable time, my utilization starts going down. I want high utilization for billable time. So I want to know what those are, but I also want to know that, did I just do 120 hours for the client when I set aside only 80 hours to do the work? Did I just blow through 40 hours? This has allowed us, earlier last year, we were blowing so many hours with clients, and this allowed us to see where and how as we dug a little bit deeper. And it helped our scoping so much as we went back and said, we didn't scope enough for this portion, or we didn't scope enough for this, or this person is not educated or trained enough, and they're just billing way too much time. And so we've narrowed that down, and our scoping now, we're at about 95 to 98% success rate on most of our scoping. And a lot of times we're coming under, but just a few hours on our projects, which is great. Clients are much happier instead of having to go back and be like, hey, we need more money. We need more money. We all want more money, but it doesn't make, if a client's not happy, you're not going to get that flywheel moving in HubSpot. So, and then we have our billable hours, and then I have hours billed in QuickBooks. So once an hour block, a project hour moves from here, it goes into QuickBooks. We tag it in here that it's been marked in QuickBooks. That way I can see how much money is still available to be billed directly in my HubSpot, and I can report on that, which is nice for me as a business leader when I want to be able to see, instead of going over to QuickBooks to see what I'm billing and see what I'm billing here, or trying to calculate backwards, I can know exactly how much revenue is still open in my system that needs to be billed. And I can even do that against the retainers that have already been paid, and look at maybe cash value that may be coming in if I'm looking at cash flow. What's work in progress is any tasks that have been marked as being worked on. We have remaining project hours. So after what's been billed, what's left. Revenue to date. So this is total revenue that can be calculated against for it, which is not equal to the retainer. So if you see the revenue, which is $1,250, and I have a retainer of $1,950, I've used $1,250 basically of the retainer. My hope is always get past that and get back further an hour, and then I can have a place for rate, so I can see how much this client's getting charged per hour. So this just gives us a high level of it's intense, and it works off so much of what's rolling up to it. So let's look at what's rolling up into it. So we're going to go over here to our first milestone. You'll see that we're on a milestone. You'll notice that milestone doesn't have contact, company, or deal, but it does have the project that I can roll back up to. And I can see the tasks that are associated with it. So these are the objects. If we go back to our object map, these are the objects that are related. So it's just project tasks that are associated. So if we go to about this milestone keeps track of hours, estimated hours, start and stop dates. It's actually more simplified. It's just tracking kind of a high level. We usually put in a note in here on like what we're doing, and usually the name of the milestone indicates what we're focusing on. Within a project task, you'll notice that we have project task here. This one didn't, it needs to be refreshed. Let's see. Oh, it's still again. My workflow's overtaking this on me because I didn't put it in right. But that number, there was a number in front of this, and that was the project number that was in front of it, and then the name of the task that was associated. You'll notice that we have statuses for the task. How many billable hours have actually occurred in that task at the milestone level. And then if we dig down into the task has way more information. We're tracking priorities, who we're waiting on, what's the status of it, what's the QA status, are we skipping the QA, who's the task owner, who else has been assigned to it, who's been assigned for QA. So these are usually not Davey Warren, it's usually some other individual, but maybe I could be assigned to do everything. Maybe that's my job today. We put in description. We actually have a note with a snippet. A lot of times we'll come in and create a note, and I think it's in here. Project. Nope, it's not that one. So bad demonstration, but we put in a snippet for notes. I don't build these. So they've got a snippet that they put in for how they want it structured for the task. So they know exactly what they need to do, what the QA process is. And so a team member will come in, they'll work off of this task. They'll work off of the note that they have in there, follow the instructions of the note, the story of what needs to be accomplished for it to be successful. And then they will change the status to ready for QA. When it moves to ready for QA, it then assigns and makes the assignment and notifies the person who's actually been assigned for QA. Once QA is passed, it then goes back to the project manager to assess and evaluate it, that it's been completed. If it didn't, then it will actually reassign it back to the task owner and notify them that they need to rework it with some notes. So trying to be efficient, due dates associated with it, more links, information, estimated time for building, hours that are used, a lot of hours. You'll notice that it's linked to the milestone, and then it's linked to project hours themselves. And this is where rubber meets the road when we track hours. Now, we had a discussion about this internally for a long time on how to best do this. We thought about putting a clock in as an extension in HubSpot. You'll notice that we built our own extension. If you're interested in it, you can reach out to me and let me know. Because the new bar up here, the new has changed. But if you're using the old one like this, we actually have a tool that overrides it, and we can create our own drop downs in here and actually customize the navigation bar up here. But we were thinking about hijacking again and putting in our own tool and having kind of like a start stop calculator. We thought about maybe having something in here where it says start, and then we hit stop again on like a drop down, and when we save it, and then it calculates the time. Just a lot, maybe just a little bit overindulgence on the automation, but there are definitely ways to do it. And I'm pretty sure that we could, if you do have a clock program that you use, you could create an app card with that clock program. And that may be something that we do now that app cards are a little bit more open, and we have a lot more customization. You could do that as well. That's just as easy as adding a start stop button on it, and maybe having an open iframe for it. So while you're working, start, stop. If you get really meticulous about your time, our team members just watch the clock, keep track of their time, and then bill accordingly in quarter-hour increments. Each person then is able to put in their own hours for this, which means that I can say the assignee is Davey, and I can have somebody else that's an assignee. Let's see if this is a task. Oh no, that's not one. I can have somebody else that's another project hour that's associated with it. For somebody else. So here's another, this is the actual project hour itself. Honestly, we never look at this. It's just about logging the hour itself of like who did it, is it billable, and what the note is. This is what will go into QuickBooks. And then when I enter it in, this is where I marked it. Yes, it's been entered into QuickBooks, and then it rolls up for that information. For us, it's just 4 simple fields. When they are building it in here and they add it in, that's it. They just go, it's me. I was doing research, or I was building. This is getting notifications. This is what happens in live. When it was completed, so what date, the number of hours that were associated with it, is it billable, non-billable, and then we do some PSO work. And then we can put in a note that's associated with it, and then I can create those project hours. And now those hours are associated with that task. And that also means that the hours on this task, it will start capturing what's been completed. And then there's more calculations running to mark it as a billable aspect. So there we go. Now it changed from 5 to 8 in billable hours. These are all automations in the background that we're building that just do roll-ups. So they're either roll-up summaries or they're roll-up summaries, calculated fields, or automation using custom code. That's why Operations Hub is great. So if you don't have Operations Hub and you just have like Enterprise, or you just have maybe even Pro, you can still use some of those calculated fields to do some of those roll-up summaries, but you are going to have a hard time when you're rolling up against 5 different objects. But if you're just using deals for your project, you can definitely do some summaries, maybe to the client level for it. So, okay. So I showed you the task. Now I want to show you how my team actually works. Because you're like, dude, that's a lot of like going back and forth through the whole process. That's not what we do. We build all of these out. It's just a building process that we go through. And then once they're built, my team comes in and uses the Kanban under the object to track where we're at with milestones, what's in progress, what's completed, what's canceled. They can verify it. And then they can go to the project tasks themselves and look at those project tasks and what's going on. But if they want to do it for the project, let's go back to the project itself and we go to milestones. I can just view associated milestones and I can see in the Kanban where they're at. If I go into the milestone itself and I want to see where my tasks are at, I can just view the associated task in the Kanban view and see where they're at or move them. And I can see we have a system in here that goes through and marks who's currently working it. So we can see that. And then my team can actually filter when they're looking at their task here. This is live. We actually go to whoever the current worker is as a filter, and they've just created their own filter tab with their name of what they're supposed to be working on. So they can see what's been assigned to them, what's in progress, what are they QAing. So a lot of guys, things that we've overcome, things that we've changed, is we realized that people were seeing it and they didn't know if they were supposed to work on it or not work on it, because they had to keep asking for a different ownership of like, am I the QA owner or am I the task owner? And so we just updated it to say, based on the status, change the current task worker to who it needs to be. And then they can just filter by current task worker and see their own board for the day of what they need to do. They get an assignment and they just start working through, and they look at their priority levels of what they need to work on. So high, medium, or low. And then whether or not the project managers, they can see what's going on. Are we waiting on the client? What's happening during the process of the project? So that then takes us to reports. So I created this little dashboard. I being a little vulnerable, I'm giving you some live numbers here. So last week, our hours burned this week so far, 53. Last week was 87. This says all time. That's funny. I think it's filtered down. So, but project hours comparison. So this week, I can see who's done work and what's billable or non-billable. You'll notice mine says 8 for billable. That's all the test stuff that I put in. I'm usually not on this chart. So I can see then how much non-billable work Kyle's done and billable work. So he's at 64% utilization this week. We try to have them put in we even have a place where they put in non-billable work when they're doing internal work. So we can start to keep track of how efficient we're being during the week. And these guys, some of them are part-time and some are full-time. So I can see how many available hours are there. So hours that need to be worked with task. I can see hours that have been scoped, hours that we've burned. I can look at the number of tasks assigned to each person. So I can see who has like a heavier load of task assigned to them versus how many hours maybe are assigned. I can see how many active projects we have at a given time. And this is all from the data that we've gathered now, right? So I'm using all this to be able to portray, and we have like 10 or 15 other reports too. I'm just giving you a few of them right now, but I can also see like billable hours per employee. So I can see the number of hours that they've billed, and I can go back to them and I can have one-on-ones with my guys to say, hey, we're meeting the metrics, we're not, what's actually hurting you? Are we not getting enough tasks assigned? The thing that we work on constantly is just getting tasks assigned to people. That is a big thing for us, is we have to have the coffers filled for them to work, and then make sure that we're managing the time associated with it. So this helps us to know who has this, what's available, like what's been assigned to each person within a task. And we actually are building, my guys use different reports to see those task assignments for hours and what they've been given versus how much they can handle in a given week. So we do have those reports as well. This is kind of an interesting report because you can see here the orange here is billable. And then you'll see that during the time that we had a massive amount of non-billable, that my billable time went down, but my non-billable time went up. So we had a week here in July. It looks like we had some massive internal work that occurred during the system, and then we've kind of leveled out a little bit. We can see here with our team, all the project hours type weekly. So I can see that a lot of the team got really disparate here. A lot of these guys did a ton of hours, and then these guys weren't doing as much. The workload was not evenly distributed. And then we can see that in November, work started to be, the distribution of work was getting a lot more clump, which is what we want. I want those guys to be closer together in their hours and not so disparate. So these are just a few of the reports that we get from it. This is kind of gone. We need time for questions, so I'm going to stop here. This is everything that I had to present on there. Couple of just things that you guys may be going is for future items. We are looking at building Gantt charts. We're looking at maybe auto assignments. So when a project or a deal gets completed, we can auto assign based on like milestones or projects or project types to people based on their availability and utilization. And then we're also creating a client portal where clients can come in and see how their project is progressing, what percentage is complete, and also see that Gantt chart that's associated with it. And then also build in communication of what tasks they need to complete versus what's done. So just some cool things. So let's get to questions, and then I'll leave this up here if anybody wants to take our information down for the future. So what questions do we have?
Yeah, thanks so much, Davey. This is super cool. I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves and come on video if they would like to ask a question. You're also welcome to ask the question in the chat, and I will be happy to relay that. So we have a few minutes here. Let us know what questions you have. This is your chance.
Everybody can ask a question except for Jeff Carlson. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Jeff. I love you. Glad you're on. No, man, I was that thorough. Nobody has a question. I know something's percolating in your mind somewhere where you're like, I don't know if that affects my business.
Hi,
yeah,
Jackie
hello.
here. Hi.
Hey, Jackie.
Hey, hello. I'll start with the questions. Very interested in that client portal piece. What is your timeline on that?
We've actually already done it before. We just haven't done it for ourselves. So we actually have created a client portal. We actually last year, we actually came out with this tool last year. And one of our first, we had an early client where we built a portal where we could actually express all this information to a client. We just have not built it for ourselves, but it is you have to have CMS. You have to have CMS Enterprise, so you can have so you can lock it down, but you can expose all the data in a CMS Enterprise scenario for a client portal pretty easily, and then connect it with tickets as well. So you can have tickets that are connected with your projects where clients maybe submit a ticket for changes or addendums or work changes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Client
Sure.
portal is exciting. It's coming next year. We're just like I said, we're so heavy on our own projects. We're not working on ours just yet. So. How much time do you have? How much time have you spent to build this? Honestly, the first go around didn't take us that long. I mean, you just kind of start, it was just kind of like step by step as we went along. It's Patrick, I think, that's asking that on the chat. We did it step by step. So just start with simple things of, hey, I need a way to be able to track hours or a project or project information, and just keep adding to it as you find new things that you need to. That's the nice thing about HubSpot is you own the system, you can add to it. For clients and stuff, building out something like this could probably take anywhere from, I'd say, like a month to a month and a half. You're probably going to see a lot of iterations, because as they get into it, they're going to realize, oh, people ask for a lot of things they think they want to track, and then realize that those are superfluous numbers. And so it's really about what you want to track and market and report on, and the reason why that you're doing that, right? Does it actually add value? So great question. But honestly, you could do this in a couple of days, build this out for yourself, and just add in a few fields at a time and what you need to track. And then you may have to do a little bit of overhaul down the road on some of it, but with all the mass tools that are out there, you can easily move and manipulate it to get the reports that you need. We've had to, when we inserted project hours over tasks, that was an overhaul for us. We just exported, re-imported. And then also with the milestones, that was a new one that took a little bit of a mass change, but my team was able to do it in a few hours.
That's
So
awesome.
if
Anyone
nobody
else, feel free. Come
Yeah.
off of mute.
Yeah.
Oh, could you repeat which HubSpot licenses are necessary for this? Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally fine. So you need at least have an enterprise license for custom objects at the least. And then if you have that, you probably have enough calculated roll up summary fields to be able to build this out. And so I'd go back to the beginning and listen to that part. You can, I would always, and I always do with all of our clients now, we actually almost have like a rule. If anybody's going to work with us, they need to have operations up, not because we want to overcode their system, but the ease of being able to move data and calculate data is so much easier in Operations Hub. So things that we did, like having the custom internal code for a client, requires Operations Hub. Being able to build some of the calculations we have for percentages requires Operations Hub. So those are things that you want to take in as you're getting larger. That's what you'll need. On the most simplest form, you could easily hijack deals. We actually just did it for a client of ours because they only have Pro. We just use deals and tickets for their projects. So even though we can't automate tickets, which they don't need, they're using deals in a new pipeline. A deal closes, we create a new deal. In that deal, they put in their project information. It's a project pipeline. And then they use tickets for each of the individual tasks that they're trying to do, or assignments that are being done for their project. So it's a simple way to be able to do that. And it's lowest level. Later on, it gets complicated and hard as you kind of grow, that it will not sustain you once you get past about 5 projects. It's really hard. So, because there's a lot of data you want to keep track of, a lot of people doing work, and you need better reporting. Oh, yeah.
And then, yeah, what were the reasons why you would use this solution versus an external project management tool?
You know why? I drink the Kool-Aid. And the other reason why, like, I love HubSpot. I want it to be able to grow, and it what's really cool is it shows the enterprise solutions that HubSpot can do. On the external tools, there were just things that we couldn't do. But they're really good at it. So if you've got people like building a Gantt chart, like we're going to build this very simple Gantt chart. It's not going to have some of the capabilities that others do. I'm still waiting for HubSpot to be able to have parent-child relationships within custom objects so that we can build out precedents. So we can say this task has to be done before this task. There are ways that we can do that now. We just usually put it into a project plan as associated with it, but other tools have like precedents associated with it, and some other things that you can do. So yeah, I definitely want to, look at that. If you need heavier tools that way, by far, I would definitely use an external tool. But if you're looking at simplification, keep it in the same system. And, as like Stephanie says here, I love keeping my tech stack slim. I do too. I really, really, really hated other things. And I was trying to hijack Trello and Asana. We actually had a developer, and he spent 2 months writing out all the API structure that we were going to do. And then I squashed it because custom objects came out and I said, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing it this way. Is the custom object especially related to the menu? Can you repeat? I'm just looking at one of the questions. So Patrick, can you repeat what part of the solution that is in the custom object, especially related to the menu? I don't think I quite understand what the question is from that. Kelly, maybe you can help me.
Yeah. I'm
So
not
the menu
exactly
item, the
sure, but
navigation bar,
Patrick,
that was,
you will
that
see
was ours.
yeah. But otherwise, perhaps the recording can
Yeah.
shed some light on that if you missed that part. I think if you have time for one more question, Davey, you can go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, Jeff and you and I can talk afterwards, but about this, but there's definitely some things you can look at with the permissions and the security, especially things that are coming out. But we can talk about that. Just one last note to leave everybody with before they jump off. So my information's up here. If you need a similar solution, or if your client does and you'd like help with it, and want to be able to engage with us and looking at it, please feel free to reach out and ask questions and pick our brain. As I tell people, especially with partners, as you have questions, you're more than welcome to come and reach out to me. I'll take you as far as I can take you. If it requires more technical, that's a little bit more difficult. That's paid time. And then of course, any building is actually like paid time with us. But if you just have questions on any of it, feel free to just reach out and say, hey, what about this? And I can quickly jump on a 15-minute call with you and walk you through it. So feel free to reach out. I really appreciate everybody jumping on. And again, love HubSpot. Love drinking the Kool-Aid, love where it's going. There's definitely more complicated stuff that we want to do in the future as we kind of move up market. If any of you aren't understanding, HubSpot's moving up market. S&B we're just taking control of. And I feel like in the mid-market space and some companies that are more sophisticated, these are the type of solutions they're going to be asking for. And it's not just this, but it's other complicated items that may be with custom objects. So please be apparent, aware of that, because it helps all of us grow together. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody, so much. You will see the recording, and we appreciate your participation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.